Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to be showing you how I make my world famous peanut butter and chocolate chip cookies. These are a staple in our house. We do not buy store-bought cookies, so I make at least one batch of these a week. We are going to be using the whisk attachment on our KitchenAid. It just works best for this. You're going to start with a cup of butter or 2 sticks of butter. Now you want it softened at room temperature rather than melted. If I can get it out of my wrapper here. Okay. And then we are going to add to that half of a cup of peanut butter. Now the recipe says a half a cup. I tend to go anywhere between a half a cup and 3/4 of a cup. This is a really amazing new type of peanut butter that I'm using that's actually all natural, but it's not a no-stir kind. The no-stir all natural peanut butters actually have added oil and even sugar to it. So this is strictly peanuts and salt. Once I get all of that in here, then we're going to add the sugar. Really good. Okay. So for this recipe, we use half a cup of brown sugar and half a cup of regular granulated sugar. Now with the brown sugar, I don't even pack it. It's just loose. Okay, so there's our half a cup of brown sugar. And then half a cup of regular granulated sugar. Now we're going to turn our mixer on and cream it together. So we want to make sure that it's nice and combined. Next, we're going to beat in 1 egg. Okay, next we are going to add a teaspoon of baking soda. And as well as a teaspoon of vanilla extract for a little bit of extra flavor. Go ahead and mix that in. Now it's time to add our flour. Now this recipe, calls for a cup and a half of flour. Normally I put half in and mix it, just on stir, so that the flour doesn't go flying everywhere. And then I'll add the other half. Once again, incorporate on stir. The last ingredient that we're going to add are our chocolate chips. Now, these are regular size chocolate chips. I have used minis and they work wonderfly in this recipe as well. And I just pour the whole bag in. With minis, I tend to only use about 3/4 of the bag, but there's still plenty of chocolate in there. Just want to stir until everything is combined. Scrape off our whisk, and we are ready to shape our cookies.
Since we're making these delicious peanut butter chocolate chip cookies, I thought I'd take a minute or two to tell you a little bit about their history. The official story says that the chocolate chip cookie wasn't invented until 1938 when a woman named Ruth Wakefield published her recipe for Toll House chocolate crunch cookies. However, it's hard to believe that in the culinary climate of her day, Ruth was the only baker doing this to cookies. Let's look back to the late 1800s when American cookies were built to last. They were rolled thin and baked to a crisp. They were called jumbles. These were thin, ring-shaped cookies flavored with whatever a baker had on hand, like a dash of cinnamon, a little bit of lemon zest, grated coconut, or minced almonds. With a little extra milk or eggs, that stiff jumble dough could be softened enough to drop from a spoon. These became known as soft jumbles. They were still baked to a crisp, but they didn't have to be rolled out. As chocolate became less expensive in the later half of the 19th century, it became yet another way to flavor these jumbles. Recipes rarely called for more than an ounce or two, and it was melted down instead of becoming little bursts of flavor in a cookie. It was incorporated into the entire dough. By the 1870s, standalone recipes for chocolate jumbles emerged as more than a simple variation. These chocolate jumbles called for a cup of butter, 2 cups of sugar, 3 cups of flour, 4 eggs, and 2 full cups of grated chocolate. Sound familiar? It should. The ratios are nearly identical to the recipe found on the back of every bag of chocolate chips today, with twice as many eggs and a lot more work. This method of making chocolate chip cookies really required the baker to have a big brick of chocolate and shave off the amount they wanted. So Ruth took this recipe and really made it her own. In 1940, she sold her recipe to a Swiss chocolate company in New York called Nestle. In order to stay ahead of the market, Nestle introduced Toll House morsels. This eliminated the hassle of chopping, and their distinctive name ensured Nestle chocolate would always be integral in the Toll House recipe. Now you want to preheat your oven to 375 degrees Fahrenheit and bake your cookies for 10 to 12 minutes. If you like them a little bit darker, then put them in for 15 minutes.